This is Black Money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to resourced.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how.
Hey, everybody. Justin Minott here on this beautiful Tuesday. It's a little bit rainy where I am, but rain is liquid sunshine. So good to be here. I am the VP of Membership Services at the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. Rolls right off the tongue. Excited to be here with my newest friend, Alexander Brave Journey Sterling, an incredible human doing incredible work. Alexander, great to have you here.
Thank you, Justin. It is great to be here.
All right. So now we just talked on the pregame. Where are you just coming in from? Because I feel like we need to start with that.
Yeah, I'm just coming in. I've been on the road for 2 weeks. I started out in Hawaii, the Hilton Waikoloa with Oista Corporation's Capital Access Convening. So it was their 10-year CAC, bringing together all the native CDFI folks, all the heads, so that we can learn from each other, get in deep with each other, and figure out how we're going to respond to this particular challenging moment.
Yeah. Now, big takeaways from that while we're here, because I just feel like that had to be such a rich convening.
Top dollar takeaways. Funders, get off your assets.
Yeah. Ooh. Thank you. Yeah, I like that.
It is. This moment, we are calling on everybody to come together, to get out there, to make sure that our communities are well resourced, especially those that used to rely on a lot of federal funding. That federal funding is, drying up, going away, getting stripped out from under us. And thanks to the same extractive systems that built all of that wealth and money here in this country, those systems are now being used to further vilify and restrict access to our communities. So right now let's stand together. Let's get out there.
I love it. I love that message. Well, good start to the episode. Now, Alexander, few things. One, your journey. How in the world did you end up? You are the CEO of Turtle Island Community Capital. Want to hear more about that. But how did you even get into this work, this role? Give us the journey.
Once upon a time, I was an art major.
Whoa. Okay. Really back. I like it.
Real far back.
Yeah.
Fine art studio. I was a metal sculptor. I was doing welding and casting work. And then from there, I learned how to build houses. And from there, I learned how to build communities. And from there, I got into solar and renewable energy. And from there, into finance. And all along the way, it was just taking each lesson from each thing, one after another, and applying it to the next. Until eventually I got to a point where I realized the one thing everybody needs to get their projects done is capital. Yeah. And if I could be the guy who's like, all right, let's help you get the money you need. Let's help you get the business plan you need. Let's help you get the development services you need to actually make yourself a success and make your community stronger, then I'll do that lift.
Yeah. And it's a big lift. I know it's not easy, but it is worth it. What is the through line that you found as you're kind of looking back on your journey? Because I feel like a lot of, heart-centered leaders, people who are really doing something in the world, like they're pulling at this thread, and it's only in retrospect that you're like, oh, okay, this is how, what is that through line for you?
I think it's been creativity. I think the entire way it's been creativity and leaning on community, learning how to make every single person. I always like to say, I don't think I've ever met an unimportant person. Sometimes they might not see it yet, but they've always got something to offer to somebody else, a lesson, a teaching, an understanding, a way of seeing the world, a perspective, and being able to employ my creativity to bring that out and bring that into the spotlight. I think that's really what's been the through line all the way.
I love that. So now talk about the start of a CDFI, right? You're an emerging CDFI. You're in this. Talk about the real formation piece from, okay, I know I need to do this. I need to be the one who steps in and does this. I want to hear about that moment. And I also want to hear about what you've done since then to actually stand this piece up, because people need to hear this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, stepping in, recognizing that there is a need, and then trying to actually meet that need are two very different things. But that part of the seesaw of somebody's got to do this, and recognizing I've got to do this.
What was that light bulb for you?
It was at the Native CDFI conference down in DC. And before that, it was last year. So I'd been working for a startup. And when they went under, and I looked around and I was like, well, why isn't anybody else funding this type of work? That grew into, how do I make sure that my community can stand up this sort of work, can stand up innovative programs and projects? And then all the way through, there's just that little, like, each puzzle piece starts to kind of fall into place until you find that one that unlocks the entire puzzle. For me, that was meeting some incredible folks at the Native CDFI conference in DC. They were that puzzle piece. You know, they said, here are the success stories that we've been putting together to bring our communities up and to make sure that everyone's stronger, that there's access to good food, that food sovereignty is a thing, that energy sovereignty is a thing, that financial sovereignty is a thing.
Wow.
And I was like, this is my community. This is where I need to be. And then the nuts and bolts of it, it became like, all right, let's take my savings. Let's bootstrap this. Let's get it off the ground. Let's find a team that is willing and able to work with me on it from day zero. And then lean on good advisors and good mentors. Find people who are more capable than I am and who've been there, who've walked this road before, and who could give me incredible advice.
That's beautiful. Talk about the building blocks practically for somebody who's like, okay, got it. I know that I'm supposed to be doing this. Access to capital, I love this financial sovereignty. That's such a beautiful phrase in there. Okay. And I want to do something, build my team. Like, what were the actual blocks of how you put this together to get to even where you are right now?
Mm-hmm. I am very fortunate that my background is in project management. So yeah, it's like you want to talk about building blocks, like your base building block is understand a project plan. Make sure that you understand which pieces even need to go before each other. How do you incorporate? Are you deciding, are you going to be a for-profit or nonprofit model? That right there defines how you're going to get your EIN from the IRS. That defines what your funding sources are going to be. How much starting capital do you have? I got lucky in that, like, I had some savings. My family believes in me. Thank you. And that they are willing to help make this thing happen before we even got our first investor. So we've been working for about 5 months. We are just securing our initial investments right now. Finding a fiscal sponsor, if you're going to go the nonprofit route, that's going to be a key. And finding one that understands how to work with CDFIs is also going to be really important. Not everybody does. Not everybody understands blended capital stacks. And when they see those, they kind of go, ooh, pump the brakes. We don't know if we can do this. But that's part of our business model. That's how we make impact investing work. Use grant funding to offset some of the programming, using low cost of capital dollars to make those initial impact investments. Or if you're doing credit building, getting in with the CBA, credit builders alliance, and making sure that you can get reporting going into the systems so that your clients can get the benefit of working with you.
Right. That's huge. That's huge. All right. So, okay, there you go. You cut out for a second. Few things I want to hear about now is the name. Talk about how you came up with the name for this work that you're doing and the significance of that.
Yeah. So in a lot of Native cultures and a lot of our mythology, right, we talk about Turtle Island. We talk about this land as Turtle Island.
Yeah. And
so from the beginning, we wanted to make sure that, like, I'm based in Rhode Island. I grew up here. My tribe is based down in the Hudson River Valley, where the Ramapo, Muncie, Lenape. And I didn't want to be boxed into this idea that I have to only work in where my tribe is or where I happen to live. So Turtle Island Community Capital reflects the idea that while we're starting here, we want to be able to work with communities wherever they are across Turtle Island, not even just within the quote unquote United States, but our First Nations folks up north and our folks down in the global south, all across Turtle Island.
Yes, yes. I can't wait to see that and so excited to be on this part of the journey. Another piece that I had a question about, how did you get your name, Brave Journey? Where does that come from?
I've had that name since I was a kid. I have had that name since I was very, very young. It was given to me by my tribe, and it's been true. You know, every step of the way, I have had to be on a very brave journey. Like just going from growing up in poverty to working at a financial institution, all of the learnings that went into that, and every single step having to go, I can do this. I can figure it out. Trusting in myself and trusting in the people around me to make sure that if I was even going to fall, I was going to fall well.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn something from it.
Yeah. I love this piece about, the self-trust and being able to lean on your community as you build these things. And I can definitely see that on your journey. So talk about where Turtle Island Community Capital is now, current state, so that when we're reviewing, in a year from now and you're just doing even bigger things, let's get a snapshot in time.
Yep. We are launching our Native Business Night New England. So we got our first one coming up here in 2 weeks, June 6th at 6 p.m. in Providence, Rhode Island. We are going to be bringing together our community, our investment folks, our development folks, our Native entrepreneurs, the people who need access to services, to just have a sit down, hang out, meet together and go, here's what's going on in the broader world. Here's what we want to bring here, and here's how we can help. We're working with a couple of folks I can't talk about too much yet because we don't have the contract signed.
Oh, it'll come in. Calling it in.
I'm really excited to be bringing circles of resilience to the Northeast, because there's some really inventive and incredible work being done providing wraparound services for Native entrepreneurs, mental health services, physical health services, financial health services. You imagine what kind of impact you can create if you can help heal that generational trauma around over exploitation and exclusion, and then turn that into business resilience. The impact that has in a community, that means somebody next to you, somebody next door doesn't just have a business, they have an understanding of why it hurt to get there, of what it took for their families to survive, to get them to the point where they could stand that up. And that's huge.
Massive. That reminds me, I heard a speaker one time talking about money as a potential medicine. And I feel like there are people called into this space to use money as healing, where money was destructive, right? So use money as something that repairs, and I know there's reparations and other words around that kind of word repairs, but how do you see money as a potential medicine, capital as a potential healing agent, where it has done so much damage in so many communities in the past?
Man, that's a good one. So we were doing a trauma-informed financial literacy coaching. Thank you, OISTA. OISTA gets my shout out. Wow. And one of the programs that we did as part of that, one of the exercises, it was writing a letter to money, right? It was, money has been an actor, a character in your life for your entire time. What if you address it? What if you finally just put pen to paper and say, dear money, here's what's up. And as we did it, it started unlocking all of this stuff for all of the other practitioners in there. My letter to money became part of my healing process, to be like, wow, you know what? I didn't even realize I had that blockage in there. I didn't even know that I was still telling this story about money to myself, even as I'm going out there and giving people coaching. Now I've unlocked something here that I can help to be that puzzle piece for somebody else. Yes. Money is just a way for energy to flow. It's how we've decided societally that we're going to assign value to our time, to our lives, to our labor. and then exchange that back and forth. If somebody says, hey, I can offer you an hour of healing for X amount of money, and you say, well, I would like an hour of healing. Here is X amount of money. That exchange, that energy exchange, came from somewhere else in your life. And wherever else in your life that was, you were willing to trade your time for those money, for those dollars from somebody else. So if we can start to see this not as static items in an account, but as the flow of water, as the river by which all of our energy is redirected. And if we redirect it into good places, then I think we have a lot of opportunity individually and collectively to create something that looks a lot more like a river delta and a lot less like a dam.
Yeah. Spitting bars. That is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So many questions, but the one that I'm going in is talk about this inside out journey as a leader, because I feel like sometimes, we're talking to a lot of executives here, a lot of CEOs who are doing this really powerful work and some people are doing it from a place where they're not okay, they're not healed, or they're not doing that inner work, and it reflects on the outside, right? I know that on my journey, right? It all kind of reflects on the outside, the inside piece, but you talked about this letter being healing for you, and now you are able to do that in the community. So talk about that relationship and that flow, your inside out work.
Man, working in general is often a process of trading yourself for something. Leading, I've found, is a process of internalizing lessons. And then for me, being a good leader is taking those lessons to heart and learning them even when they're hard for me, so that I can make the world better for the people that I'm leading. And some people don't do that. And that's all right. That's their journey. That's their path. And it means that they're going to make decisions that are maybe not the most aligned with what they want their mission to be.
Yeah.
For me, it's constantly having to come back to that mission. It's like, why am I doing this? What is the thing that we're trying to accomplish? And am I operating from a heart-centered place to make sure that the work I'm doing goes toward that mission, not toward feeding the idea that this should be important? Because sometimes, like, we're in community development, right? If your community is saying, hey, actually, we don't need that thing, we need this other thing, you got to be humble enough to be able to listen to that too. And
but I spent so much time making this widget.
Yeah. Like, well, just because like that program that we spent so much time on looks great, community says we don't actually need that, then what we should have done is started from that listening session and going back and going, hey guys, what do you need? So that's where we start, right? That's where we start, is going to our community and saying, what does this group need? Because each cohort is also going to be different. Every group of entrepreneurs or group of folks who are coming in for literacy coaching, or group of people who are just looking for their next small dollar loan to try to stand something up, they all actually need something different. And whatever that first intake is going to be, that first listening, it's going to tell us more than what we think we need to hand them. They might come in and say, we need $5,000 to do this project. And we might discover through listening to them that what they actually need is support development services to understand why $5,000 isn't quite enough. And if that's not quite enough, then they'll end up in that predatory debt trap with other people who have to offer them short-term, high-interest capital. So now we can actually work with them through a slightly longer scope and be like, cool. Now that we've actually had a chance to listen, now we can reflect back what it really is at the core of your issue. But in order to get there, I got to be humble enough to say, I don't know everything. I don't know everything about your business. I don't know everything about your life. I don't know anything about the road that you've walked on, but I want to hear it. I want to learn it.
That is everything. I mean, we have our conference coming up in June called The Power of Service. And I feel like service has to be community driven. Otherwise, it's only serving an ego. right? It has to actually not just community informed, community driven, because then you're actually responding to what people are saying they actually need. Now, how do you decipher and discern between the surface level, what someone's saying they need, right? And then getting to the deeper that, like, oh, okay, this is where we're actually needing to begin. What's that discernment process like?
So remember earlier when I was like, I was an art major in college. I was also a philosophy major.
Ah, perfect.
Yep. I did both of them. So I learned how to make and I learned how to think. And
Wow.
learning how to think and do that inquiry. Inquiry is where it all starts for us, for me, because it's how do I get there? Right? You say, I need a spoon. And I say, all right, what do you need a spoon for? You say, well, I'm trying to eat soup. Oh, cool. What kind of soup? And you're like, well, I haven't made the soup yet. And it's like, all right, what kind of soup do you want to make?
Right.
Carrot and onion. Do you have carrots or onions? Well, no. All right, then. Let's get you some seeds. You know, it's that kind
Right,
of
because if I gave you a spoon, you're not doing much with it.
Exactly.
That's
People
a
think
delicious
they need one
analogy.
thing, but they actually need something that's 5 steps earlier. But you're never going to understand that they needed that 5 steps earlier thing if you just go, sounds great. Here's your spoon.
Wow. I love the way you're leading. I love the way you're doing all of this work. Now, you talked about being mission driven, staying aligned to that. What is the mission? What's the vision here for Turtle Island Community Capital?
Yeah, the mission for Turtle Island Community Capital is simple. It's bringing good, patient, equitable capital to Native communities across Turtle Island. Our vision is one where our Native entrepreneurs don't have to end up in debt traps. It's one where the folks who are looking to stand up businesses aren't stuck going to payday lenders, aren't stuck going to short-term loans, trying to get the capital they need, because oftentimes that initial pre-seed investment capital is the hardest to get.
Yeah.
If you've got a good idea and a good recipe and you want to start a food truck, that first $5,000 is the hardest $5,000 you will ever make.
Yeah.
And we want to be the people who can step in and say, we're willing to believe in you. Belief is what makes the world what it is. And if we're willing to believe in people, then they can change it.
I love that you said that. Paul Jones from Prosperous Detroit said on the show a few months ago, he calls that believe in you money. That and that some other communities or groups of people have easier access to that believe in you money. So I feel like stepping in that space does advance equity in a really powerful way, because you're not going to your rich uncle or just your pool of friends. You know, $5,000 could be a lot for some communities, some people, right? So I think that is a beautiful way to get started. What is your personal why? Why you?
Why me?
Yeah.
I like going to the gym. I like lifting. I know this is a heavy lift, and I'm willing to do it to make sure that nobody else has to. That's why.
Come on.
When I started doing this work, I got warned all up and down the coast by people who were like, this is a big lift. There's a lot to it. It's a heavy lift to try to stand up, not just a CDFI, but to do so in an area where there isn't one. We don't have a native CDFI in Southern New England, period. So, we got our good friends and relatives up in Maine, 4 Directions. We got our good friends and relatives, Seneca Nation over in Western New York. And this whole section in the middle, there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. So you see a need, you want to step in, you want to do the right thing. And then people go, hey, man, it's going to be hard. And I go, well, you know what? Somebody's got to do it. And if it's going to be hard, it might as well be me.
Come on. Alexander Brave Journey.
I've done hard things my whole life, man.
Yes. Okay, so that's why CDFI? There are a lot of different ways that you could think about deploying capital. Why'd you go in the community development financial institution route?
And specifically the nonprofit CDFI route, which again adds another extra layer of complexity, especially at the start. I wanted to make sure that one, as a nonprofit, we can make sure that most of our money is actually going to the people that we help. Right? We're not trying to do shareholders. We're not trying to make profit for anybody else. We're trying to make sure that all of the dollars that we get in go directly to the people that we actually need them to get to.
Yeah.
Less overhead, make sure we can employ technology to make our systems work properly, our processes work efficiently. And that way we're driving impact where it needs to be.
Mm.
Community development is at the heart of who I am as a person. Like
Yeah.
I told you before, I've been building community for years. That's how I've made my life. That's how I've survived in a lot of places. I ran a Burning Man camp for 10 years, man. They're right up there. My homies at Dome on the Range, love you. Because building community is literally how we survived in one of the harshest physical environments on the planet. If you don't have neighbors that you can rely on to have an extra egg or bring you some water when you're really tired in the morning, you're having a really bad day.
Mm.
Community development is how we advance as a people. It's how we grow as underinvested, I think is the new term that we're supposed to use.
Yeah, historically excluded. There's a lot of
Overexploited.
yeah. We could go there, man. You know, we keep it a hundo.
100%. And then being a financial institution is because that's how capital flows. Like somebody's got to be able to understand and run the back end on loan calculations and underwriting and revenue-based financing models to be able to make sure that the people who are doing their project don't need to be like, oh shit, now I got to learn about how all of this lending capital works. Be like, trust, you just need somebody who already knows it. That person can be me. Let's roll.
We got that part. Yes.
You keep focusing on building houses. You keep focusing on getting your food truck stood up. You keep focusing on HVAC tech. Whatever it is that you're doing that makes your community stronger, you do that. We'll worry about the rest.
Brilliant. Now, I'm curious about, you mentioned community building as resiliency, survival. In a moment like this, where we are in the United States of America, talk about opportunities for community building at a practical level. What does it look like for us to be deeply in community in ways that make us far more resilient than we are by ourselves? What does that look like practically right now?
Practically, it looks like knowing your neighbors. It looks like meeting the people around you and understanding who they are as human beings and how you can help. We often hear this refrain of like, ask not what your country can do for you. And it's like,
pretty good accent.
Yep, I know, right? I do a couple of them. But right now, it's literally, who do you have in your community who is growing strawberries? How can you help them? What can you do to make sure that your next door neighbor is stronger? What can you do to make sure that your grandma down the street has what she needs? Because we all have to churn out in this moment. Community development for us to make survival happen is a lot of protecting each other. It's making sure that when ice rolls through, you don't know nobody who lives in this neighborhood.
Right.
It's making sure that we are careful with the ways that we are existing publicly and privately. And making sure that we are protecting those who are most vulnerable so that they don't have to worry as much about constantly watching their backs. Everybody's got families, everybody's got kids, everybody's got grandparents, everybody's got brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, etc. So make sure that you've got folks on speed dial who are available to help. If somebody's power goes out, when tornadoes rip through the center of the country and we don't know about it because they defunded the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association, who's going to get that call? Who's going to get that phone call that says, hey, like our house disappeared, got sucked up into the sky, and we need someplace to go?
Wow.
That's how we
need
come
to
together.
Be connected like that. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Now, one piece I want to go into, because you sit at in a really unique seat, right? Talking about the intersectionality between Native and Black communities. Talk about that experience for you and some of the opportunities that you see moving forward.
Yeah, I'll talk about the intersection. So I am Black, I am Ramapo, and I am Cuban. I am first generation Cuban. My dad was born in Cuba. I am Black. My family has been here. They were down in the South for a long, long time. And then on the Native side, my people, the Ramapo Munsee, have been the keepers of the past for thousands of years.
Mhm.
So I am right at this intersection of first gen, 12th gen, mid gen.
Right,
And all of it works together to provide this beautiful landscape for resilience, like internal resilience.
Mhm.
The Black Liberation, Indigenous Sovereignty, Bliss Collective, they're doing some incredibly powerful work. One of the things that we kind of have to remember is that all of this is stolen land and all of these are stolen people. And
Yes.
we have to work together in a way that is much more holistically supportive to make sure that we're able to fight against the systems of oppression and exploitation that were otherwise keep trying to exploit us.
Mhm.
Being in the seat, being able to sit here on, the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, coming from the native CDFI conference,
I love it.
and what are the best learnings from each of these areas? I'll be out in New Mexico with the Hispanics in Philanthropy, Natives Americans in Philanthropy conference. Again, synthesis. Let's bring all of this together, bring all of our learnings together, and then get all in the same rooms so that we're not operating in silos. Us being in silos only benefits the people who don't want us talking to each other. And we know who those people are.
Right. Right. So what are the opportunities for collaboration? Is there some low-hanging fruit for these communities to be working more in solidarity because it's needed, right? We
Mhm.
need this.
I'd say our lowest hanging fruit right now is we are putting together our partner resilience network. So up here in the Northeast in particular, it's multidisciplinary. We're working across organization levels and tiers. It's folks who want to be involved and want to be kept up to date on how they're responding to this moment, right? Our partner resilience network is based on the idea of if a cannonball gets dropped over here, if you are an isolated island, you are getting sunk. But
Mhm.
if you've got a good web, then that cannonball hits and everybody feels it just a little bit and we're able to ripple out.
Yeah.
In really practical terms, I think for communities who don't have that, if anybody out there is a community organizer, like it's on you right now. This is our moment to bring our skills to bear, to be the ones who are saying, I will set the table. I'm not just going to wait for somebody else to give me a seat at their table. I will set my table and invite others to it and say, please come eat with me. Come learn from me and let us learn together how we're going to survive this moment.
So what are you seeing now practically in this moment? What are you seeing as some of the things that people need to be paying attention to across these communities that we're talking about?
Everything.
Right, which
I
I
mean,
think is why it actually takes that network, though, because we can't be aware of all the things at all times, all the resources, right? I do think it takes that network of awareness that we're informing one another, but keep cooking on that.
I think it's, we got a genocide going on over in Gaza right now. We've got that being fed by AI identification of targets. We've got that being fed by the over militarization of police forces. We got that being fed by the hyper concentration of capital. We've got that being fed by ideals where I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there was some fringe theory that all the billionaires are into now, where it's like, yeah, things should be run by a dictator CEO. What a brilliant idea that is. And it's like, man, again, it's feudalism with extra steps. Come on, guys.
Oh my gosh.
But we as people need to be aware of all that and how things are interconnected in that way. Right. It's not just that, these policies that they're rolling out in government are in the big, beautiful bill are undercutting all of the social support networks that we've built up over time. Like the point of government is to take care of the people. And if it's not doing that, then what's the point? So how do we take care of ourselves and each other?
Yeah.
In order to do that, we got to know each other. How do we do that? We got to get out and meet people. How do we do that? We got to have places and reasons to meet people. That's why we got to start doing those things. Get people together, get people in the door, make sure that they're making those good connections. And whoever that one person is, that's going to be sort of your linchpin for all of these organizations and all of these groups. Make sure they're not the only one, because group resilience is built by having multiple points of connection. And anytime there is one person or one org or one centrally located place where a lot of other connections happen, that's a weakness to the resilience of the whole. We got to start thinking distributed. We got to stop thinking concentrated. That's like the idea of indigenizing a bunch of these systems, is making sure that we're not just doing this and hoarding more wealth in our community instead of others, but making sure that it's flowing back out. It's moving through.
Yes, those principles are so needed. And I'm loving how simple and profound and beautiful some of these counter moves really are, which is like, hey, how about we take care of each other? Hey, how about we don't hoard more than we need and make sure that, you know, everybody has access to what they need to, and disperse more of this so that we can be more resilient and woven together in some beautiful ways. I mean, it seems so simple. So what's stopping us from doing it? From doing some of these, like, literally just simple things like, hey, can we be together and share what we got? You know, what's stopping us?
You want to talk about historical trauma? You want to talk about historical?
I mean, we'll go there.
Like, yeah, we're here. We are so used to fighting for scraps.
Yeah.
So used to fighting for the scraps of government dollars or corporate handouts or business dribblings that they might pass through a community. And we've gotten accustomed to that meaning, well, if you got that grant, then somebody else didn't. Or if you got that, then I can't. Everything has to be hyper competitive, which means that it's hard for a lot of folks, especially folks who have been in, you know, nonprofit spheres, grant spheres, philanthropy spheres for a long time, to respond to this moment because they've gotten used to a certain way of doing things.
Yeah.
We need our philanthropy partners to adjust. We need them to recognize that this isn't about who's going to do it, quote unquote, the best. It's who's going to do it. Who's going to literally just get out there and do it. And if more people are doing it, then better. Yeah. That makes everybody stronger. And for those of us who are organizers, we got to get out there and do it. We got to be out there and saying, you know what? I'm not going to compete. I am going to be the one who is going to stand up and say, I want to work with you. Let's do this together. Let's make a coalition. We don't have to do it perfectly. We just got to do it.
Right. But that's how community is built. It's built in the mess of real relationships, right? And trust, and making sure that we have room to grow together. I think that's exactly how it's done. And I love how you're doing this. All right, where do I want to go now? Oh, well, no, we're going to get to your book after, because I want to make sure that we shout out your book on here. I have to. It's just a thing. Now, sitting in the seat that you are, I do want to hear your perspective, because I ask this to every single guest on the show. What does Black liberation mean to you?
It means being able to make our own mistakes. It means being able to get out there and make our own choices and create our own communities and build them the way we see we need to. Not the way some other urban planner, who's probably a white dude from 1923, thought we needed to, but the way we actually recognize that our communities have independent needs, have different ways of living, have different ways of communicating. Black liberation looks like not just copying the white Western European model for success. It looks like reinventing what we're going to define as success. And it looks like co-creating that to make something that is holistic, is supportive, is employed by our people for our liberation, for our collective goal setting. Yeah. Outside of this extractive system that was built on our backs.
Yes. And then now we're trying to measure ourselves against this system that was not built by us or for us in any single way, or with us in mind at all. My last week's guest, Dr. Gene Gelgelo, he's doing some brilliant work connecting the African immigrant community up in Minnesota. And he was just talking about the importance of getting to some of our roots, because these things that we're talking about are ways of living that we have just been separated from, but are very, very core and beautiful and simple that we need to be stepping back into. So what are you seeing as some of the ways of being, some of the ways of living? I know we touched on a few that you see this like, man, it's in us already to do. And now we're trying to play this Monopoly board game over here. And it's like, no, come on, divest. Let's be over here doing what we're actually made to do. What do you see as that?
For me, it's being a dad.
Yeah.
I got an 18-month-old.
Congrats.
I got twins on the way this summer.
Woo!
Yeah, stoked
Come
on
on,
it.
brother.
And let me tell you, being a father, being an active dad, I was just running around with my kid in San Francisco for a week, taking him all over the place, playing in the park while his mom was in the office. I think we, as men, particularly Black men, have been so segregated from the idea of active fatherhood, and for a lot of very well-defined reasons. And getting back to that, remembering that we used to raise families in community, and those communities were all of us together.
Yeah.
Right? The idea of the like American nuclear family, it's like 2.5 kids, white fence, you got a dog, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't what we culturally were built up on in any of my cultures.
Well, I was just reading some research on that talks about how that actually is the perfect structure to keep people separate and exploited, because you're not really interconnected. You're competing with each other. Like, I got to have, the Joneses, whatever thing that you're doing. So like that nuclear kind of thing, not that it doesn't work at all, but it's kind of the perfect thing to keep people separate.
Yeah, it's designed to. Because if you start sharing resources, like if you got neighbors and they got kids, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait, why are we both paying for daycare? Like, we can just hang out together. And all of a sudden now we're sitting around the table. Now we're having dinner. Now we're sharing together. And once you start sharing in that way, all of a sudden the whole hyper-capitalist system really doesn't like that. It's just like, wait a second, you guys just realized you only needed to buy 2 leaf blowers for an entire neighborhood instead of every single person buying a leaf blower.
Right. Why are you sharing your car? Everybody needs one. Like,
or you just get a big old van for the whole neighborhood, and it's cool.
Right. I love it. I love your heart. I love the way that you're approaching the work and the way that you're making such a big difference in the world. I want to close on this. What is something, we've gone in a lot of directions today. We know that you're an artist, a philosopher, an author. I want to bring that book up right now. And after that book, what is one thing that very few people, even now, know about Alexander Brave Journey Sterling?
Well, the book is Our Love is Like a Garden. I did write it for my son. It was originally a love letter to my partner. And then as I was working on it, I realized it was a love letter to him of emotional resilience, and that there are many different things that are needed to make sure that our love can grow. And you want to talk about one thing that a lot of people don't know about? Man, there's a lot of them. I'll tell you that much right now.
I know. That's why I said keep in mind.
Territory today already. Well, a lot of people don't know that I have the softest heart anybody's ever met. I cry at the drop of a hat when we're watching sad movies. And I sit there. I was watching my son play in the park the other day, and one of my best friends for a long time picked him up and was just holding him. And he's got his baby on his hip, and I just like got all misty eyed. And a friend looked at me and was like, "Does that happen to you a lot?" And I'm like, "No."
Yes, it does, and it should. I love it, man. We gotta feel, man. We gotta be in touch with that type of stuff. I think you can only live to the depth that you're willing to feel.
100%.
I don't think, yeah. Come on, man. I want to see it. Well, when we get together, I know you're not going to make it to this conference, but when we get together, we'll cry about something together, because I'm with you right there.
Sounds good. I'll be seeing you probably at OFN then.
Oh, yeah. We'll be coming together October. Man, thank you. Thanks for being who you are. Thanks for everything that you're bringing to the world. You know, the Alliance is here to support your brave journey as you continue this forward, and excited to see you expand to the entire Turtle Island. Now, for those who don't know, like, where does that, I know you talked about some of like the mythology and the pieces around that, but not a lot of people have heard of that phrase, Turtle Island. So like, what is that?
So once upon a time, in the long, long ago,
Yes.
when the earth was young and the animals still spoke, there was a great flood, and as it covered the lands, all of the animals were in fear. Some of them were drowning, many couldn't swim. And the turtle, knowing that it could be on both land and in the water, went down and started to pile up the mud on its back. And as it did, it created more and more. And the other animals, seeing this, helped and began to pile more and more of that mud on it until eventually they had some place to sit and rest. The turtle took on this burden and continued to pile itself to give them a place to live, and continues to swim through that mighty ocean today. That's why we call this Turtle Island. And that's a great story of not just resilience and sacrifice, but also one of community building, everyone coming together to co-create that home. And then one person being willing to say, I got you, I'll stay here.
Right. And I love just the idea of, you know, it takes that one to start it, but people do want to help. Right. And so I see you, you know, you're on this journey and it takes that one. So, you know, congratulations for taking that step and being, I mean, the first turtle so that people can really come around you in your community. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. All right. And to those of you who tuned in today for this show, thanks for being here so much. You could have been anywhere else and you chose to be here with us. My one ask is share this interview out with your network, because it does a wonder for the LinkedIn algorithms and boosting this and getting more eyes on the important work that Alexander and his team at Turtle Island Community Capital are doing. So share that out, keep changing the world. And with that, I think we're out. You good?
Thank you.
We've done it. Thank you, sir.
This is Black Money.
About economic liberation and freedom.
Critical conversations to invigorate our communities through Black-led CDFIs.
But most importantly, we want people to create wealth.
When we look at our communities, we still see a big disinvestment.
Going from resourceful to
You know,
resource.
CDFIs have that high touch. They understand their customers. They know how to reach out to those customers. They stay in touch with those customers.
We are trying to create job makers and not just job takers.
Yeah, I've even heard it said recently that great leaders don't lead from the top down, they lead from the bottom up, because they're actually lifting everybody.
We have to do more than just being a regular lender.
Don't give me this story about if I teach you how